All right. We're back for another episode of the Bad Ideas podcast with Brandon Bowers, COO of SMB Team. Welcome, Brandon.
Thanks for having me.
I was just talking to you about how amazing your office is and how
Yeah,
much money we spent on the extras walking behind you before the show.
that's right. There
Um,
should be a few, 3 or 4 people. I think we paid to walk behind to look
but
busy.
it's just a wonderful testament to SMB
Yeah,
Team, your budget, the media budget. This is the
exactly.
highest production value Bad Ideas podcast of all time. So I mean, that's partially a testament to you and the team you've built and the success you've had. So how'd you get started? How'd you find your way here? And what did the early years kind of look like for you?
Well, it's kind of, I think like a lot of people have a little bit of a journey that varies off into different areas, right? We work with attorneys now. The bulk of our clients, like right now, we deal with law firm owners. Eventually, we'll expand to other verticals, but it's all law firm owners. And oddly enough, my entire life, I thought I was going to be an attorney. I
Oh,
shadowed a guy since I was 13. Our family's attorney. I shadowed him every summer. I'd go with him to court and his office and just see what he did. His advice to me was after college, take a few years and go work, just get life's perspective, and then go back. You'll be better off in law school if you get that perspective first. I said, okay, great. And I went out and I got into sales and did very well. I was making 6 figures right out of college. And got bored with that job and then found this company that was in real estate, which I was very interested in. And they were opening other businesses.
mhm.
So when I went there as like sales and business development, and they had the real estate, which is what I originally went for. But while we were doing that, they opened a car wash, a taxi business. I then went to New York and saw like that's when like the screens in the back of taxis were getting big and running
Yeah,
ads in there. So I was like, so we started a media company where we sold ads on top and in the back of the taxis. We
that's
had a
super cool.
nightclub, we had an event space, we had this restaurant, which I started catering to. That was back when doctors could spend a lot of money on pharmaceutical reps could spend a lot of money on the doctors. So we got a big catering business together. So it was just my first introduction into a lot of entrepreneurism and growing those like 5-6 businesses over a course of like a year and a half was exciting to me.
Especially
And
so
that's when I got
young. That's
right.
crazy. That's
I think I was
crazy.
23 or something. Yeah.
So then you were like, yeah, all right, now's the time to go back to law school.
So
Like
I
I
was
know how to
like,
build
ain't
company.
happening. I was like, this is too much fun.
Yeah.
But then the market crashed. That was like '08 and '07, right? So it was like, that's when all the real
Best
estate,
time.
and unfortunately, a lot of things were leveraged. And
A little bit.
so, yeah, a lot of, without going into details, the businesses that were doing very well went out of business or like had to be sold and whatnot. So it affected me and my income. So then I found a company that I had interned with in college that did custom suits. You were talking about my jacket earlier. I actually
It's a
made this
sweet
one.
jacket. It's a sweet
Appreciate it.
jacket.
So I got into the custom suit business for a number of years and worked my way up pretty quickly in that company. We got sold to private equity. After a few years, I then founded my own and then kind of had like a book of business acquisition to another company that was much larger than I was. And
That's super. What was it called?
mine was called Tesaro Custom.
And that's what you're wearing now.
This is Tesaro, yes, yeah.
That's
And then
so
I sold to
cool.
a company called Balani,
Yeah.
and
Do
that
they
brought me
still?
back to.
Is it the
I'm
same
sorry,
brand? They still produce Tesaro?
Balani is Tesaro's. Yeah, they just
Okay.
took over like the book whenever I sold it to them. Like it was part of me going on
And they sell
joining
their
them.
products.
Yeah, so then it was selling
Right.
their products. So they're quite large. They're across the country. They're still going strong, and you know, as part of going there, I wanted to kind of get out of the sales side. I started really enjoying hiring, growing people, and managing, which I had been doing at the other company. And so I was kind of like half integrator. We started on EOS, and I was half integrator slash like COO, and then some other roles there. It was kind of a little bit of everything. And I really just wanted to be COO. But COVID hit, really, of course, impacted our industry. We had
Oh wait,
manufacturing
then COVID.
overseas. Yeah, it's
Jeez.
always something. You never know.
Yeah.
But you got to be resilient. And so I ended up, I wrote it out through with them, like through COVID. And then later that year, I really wanted to lean in on this role. And so I found an opportunity that, eventually led me to find SMB Team and just be a COO. So
And the
I
rest is
joined
history.
here, yeah, July 2021.
And how
And
big was
then
the team then?
I think I was employee 14 or 15. I think 15.
And now?
Now we're in the 150s. Yeah.
We'll
Yeah. So it's been good growth.
brush off the shoulder. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And, obviously great revenue growth to support that. So it's been a whirlwind. I think when I joined, we were doing about 200 and I don't know, I always forget. I think it's like 230,000 a month because we're an MRR based business. Um, and now I think we're like, 2.7, 2.8 million a month almost. We're about to hit 3.
A little bigger.
So and we've opened, we're partners in 3 other entities uh, that also support law firms. So it's been pretty exciting.
That's awesome. And it's so cool that you come from like the sales side into the operations
As an
side.
operator, yeah, very different.
It's
Yeah.
well, it's a really cool perspective. It's probably why you have such a hammer on the growth lever for things.
Yeah.
And I think
I think that's what attracted. Oh, sorry. I think that's what attracted my CEO to me. Like
yeah.
most operators are very back end,
Yeah,
just
I don't care how the
operational
business
details in the
grows.
weeds. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
super, super, super cool. What I was going to bring up was just, we talked about this when we met. Like the purpose of bad ideas is to show people like the building that happens inside and on the company that actually makes it
Right.
grow. That doesn't really have much to do with the idea at all. It's more about how you like
Exactly.
architect groups of people that can pull the company forward, and give them lanes that can create growth. And that seems to be a superpower of yours.
I try at least.
Well,
Yeah. It's,
the
I
office
think,
speaks well to it.
yeah. Well, I think, it's, our company moves very quickly and our CEO is a very fast mover. And so I think um, there's definitely been times where we've had to pull things together very quickly.
Mhm.
And so that kind of forces you to take that action and figure things out quickly. So I think that kind of tied to what I was saying to you about, good idea, bad idea. We're very good at taking something in front of us, figuring out a game plan of action. How are we going to make this work? And even if we don't fully agree, we can make it happen. We can figure it out.
Do you have a process? So someone drops a goal on your plate and they're like, hey, we have to figure out how to deal with this. Or um, I know we're in law firm support, but we're going to open a catering business now.
Yeah.
Let's stand it up in 2 months. Like, do you have a couple pillars you look at first, almost like a mini process, or is it case by case? Or is
Well,
that too
I mean, I
general of
think
a question?
no, I think I can bring it down a little bit to more
Mhm.
specifics of how we do it. So I would say it's 2 parts. So one, we work on what's called a driver model, which is what how a lot of like PE firms operate with their operating companies. Um, so we're very strategic in terms of everything has to align with our goals. So we already have our goals set out for the next 3 years,
Mhm.
and we reverse engineer each year what we're going to accomplish. So if something doesn't align with those goals, it's very easy to say not
Nope.
right now, right?
Mhm.
Um, the second part of that is anything that, let's say it's maybe something we weren't thinking of that we maybe should consider this. We always, I mean, look, one of our services is coaching, and we believe in coaching a lot, and we always have our own executive coaches. So my executive coach sold his business to Groupon. He's been a CEO of a lot of large companies, and his background originally was at Bain Capital, so he
Mhm.
understands that world. And one of the things he taught me was like decision tree and pyramid principle. I don't know if you're familiar with
Yeah,
those.
yeah. But I
Yeah.
mean,
So
for the audience, break them down. Break them down.
yeah. So I mean, anytime you have like pyramid principle, you'll take a situation. So what is our situation that we're dealing with at the highest level? How can you
Mhm.
not something that's in the weeds. Usually your first thought is not big picture enough. You have to take it to
Mhm.
the highest big picture you can. And then, there's often a complication, that you have to factor into that. And then the question is like, what should we do about this? And generally, let's say like the idea, like you said, someone brought an idea. The question would be, should we implement this into our strategy, knowing that it doesn't align with our big picture goal or something? And then you
Mhm.
put a hypothesis together. Yes, we should, or no, we shouldn't. And
Mhm.
then it's just all about, again, it's that they call it pyramid because you're going to break it down. So you have that situation, the complication, the question, your hypothesis, and then you have to have supporting reasons and
Mhm.
supporting facts under each reason.
Mhm.
And so I now think that way. He's worked so much with me on that not just how I naturally think now. Um, And anytime I'm unsure about something, I take it to the pyramid principle because I can think through it. And if I can't make a strong enough argument,
Let it
then we
go.
can't do it. Then we just
Let
let
it
it
go.
go. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's also a perfect segue to our subject matter for this episode.
Yeah.
But that, I mean, it also touches on a bunch of the themes that we're talking about. I think um, a lot of folks have ideas that they want to like pursue. You remember what, like 3-4 years ago, everyone had an app like, oh, I'm going to make an
Oh
app
yeah,
and it's
for
going to be
sure.
this, it's
Yeah.
going to be amazing. And now I think there's like 7 million apps between Google Play and Apple Store. And
We
like
had one. Yeah. It's very hard to monetize.
I know, but also like most people on the street probably couldn't name more than 50 if you like paid them money to do that.
Right.
So like of the 7 or 8 million, like 50 maybe people actually know. Um, but like what differentiates those 50? Like why did those succeed? And it's because of this stuff. It's because of reasoning principles, decision making, the
Yep.
teams you built inside of it. It actually doesn't really have much to do with the idea at all. And an example I bring up a lot on the show is like shake weight. Like not a good idea, but excellent execution. And they had distribution in all the major
Yeah.
retailers. Like so, like the idea doesn't matter. It's this stuff. It's the reasoning, the governance of your company, the teams you build, how you steer focus. That's what actually builds things. So if you can apply focus to an idea you care about, you can make anything. Well, at least I think so. I don't know. What's
No, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
oh, I mean, you've done it.
Execution's everything,
You're
right? Like
like
execution is a large part of that. It's, you know, people can have great ideas, but if you can't execute on those ideas, it doesn't matter how great the idea is. So
it's the 8 millionth
execution is a
app.
big thing in our company. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. I mean, you guys are doing it well, growing super super fast. So let's look at our crazy idea and see if it's
Okay,
something
I'm excited.
that we
I'm
believe we can
intrigued.
execute. And if we don't, we can just tear it apart.
Okay,
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's see what we got. Our bad idea is resume roast recruitment. Candidates submit resumes for a live or virtual comedy event where professional comedians roast their typos and buzzwords, while recruiters offer feedback and award job offers to those who shine under pressure. So
Wow.
this is like a pressure cooker interview strategy as a business.
This is
What's
actually
your
perfect for me because I'm really big on recruiting.
okay?
I built our internal recruitment process, and it's something that my wife and I are exploring opening right now on our own as a recruitment business.
Ooh.
So this is actually perfect, and I hope you don't have a copyright on this idea because I actually like this idea.
Well, tell us.
I
Tell
think I
us.
want to implement this. I'm a big fan of comedy as well, so like
Oh,
I'm a huge comedy fan. So I love roast, and I watch shows like Kill Tony every week. So I think
yeah.
this could be like the ideal combination of two passions of mine, comedy and recruitment.
And outside of all the HR issues, like getting
Yeah.
sued because a comedian offended a candidate or something,
You would
but
definitely have to have a lot of waivers for sure at the beginning.
yeah. But do you think I spend a lot of time on the recruiting side too, and I feel like ChatGPT has made everything so difficult because
Yeah,
now everyone's resume is written by the same person, and it's just really hard to tell what's real, on paper.
it is.
So you have to talk to a lot of people, and I think that's probably where this idea comes from. Like, how do you like without using AI to filter people, which clearly doesn't work and has its own
Right.
ethical issues? Like, how do you mass screen? And their idea was, oh, we'll bring them in and roast them
Yeah.
and see how that goes.
Well, the one good thing, I mean, I think you know, there's a little bit of like truth in everything. They always say like in the comedy, right? Like a lot of the stories are made up, but there's a little bit of truth in everything.
Yeah.
And so at least maybe it would shine some light on some of the ridiculous things you see in some people's resumes and make them think twice about what they
Yeah.
want to put in there because you do see some crazy stuff.
I think the beauty too is for this idea, the comedians are kind of liable. It's not necessarily the organization.
Very true.
So
Yeah.
if you're hiring like a service firm to do the screening for you, like the experience you're going through is the service firms. It's not the companies. Um, they're just the
Yeah.
end
So in this
goal or like the
scenario,
prize.
is it the company hiring who's sponsoring these recruitment roasts, or is it like its own thing?
It's not really specified. So you're
Yeah.
thinking like almost like a
I came at it a
recruiting
different way.
company? Yeah. What were you thinking?
I almost came in as like yeah, like almost like I don't want to call it like a game show, but I don't know if you ever saw that. There's like posts that go around all the time on like social media, and it's like it's almost like a dating type thing, and people get up there and they like blindfold and they like ask all these questions and they kind of roast them on certain things. And I almost see it as kind of like that. Like
Huh.
you're out there to kind of showcase your skills and build your outward resume, almost like a Shark Tank without your product. You are the product, right? But
That's
instead, we're going to
super
roast you
cool.
and grade you and kind of, so it's like entertainment for some people, but also you know, you also get the value maybe in like learning what you're good at and what you're not good at.
That's like a fantastic idea because then it's like a media program on its own, and people
Exactly.
would
Yeah.
watch that. Like people would watch
I
other
think it
people
would
get
be. Yeah.
interviewed.
That's why I said I would love this idea. I would actually like to copyright it
Well, I
because
mean that's your
I guess that's how I
idea.
approached at it. You know, I
Yeah.
think that's just how I didn't even think about it like in terms of an internal company. Um, I think the closest I ever came to that was there were times where we would do group recruiting and we would, I think it was like a lot of times like in sales or different account managers. And let's say we had 4 people on there. I would ask the questions and go around. And then at the end of it, I'd go around the room and I'd say, okay, you know, Joe, Samantha, like you're all going to take one. I'm going to hire you, and I'm going to hire one other person in this group. Like, who are you bringing with you?
Hmm.
And it was always interesting to see. Um, they almost always pick the same person, and it was
Hmm.
usually who you were thinking is
Hmm.
like the best candidate. So it's funny how in a group setting people can always see it, and the truth comes out just on its own, right?
That's super interesting. So your idea is like bring this public, make it entertaining content,
Yeah,
um, and also use it as it's almost like educational too, because
exactly.
everyone who's watching is also kind of learning like what people target, what people say.
Because you
Can you
had the
take
HR people, right? You said the HR people are going to be a part of it to give the actual
yeah,
like real feedback, and then the
that's
comedians make it more entertaining, so you're getting both sides of it.
you also kind of create an opportunity for comedians to properly monetize, right?
100%. Yeah.
Because who can't make fun of a resume? Like everyone can make fun of a resume. That's so easy.
Right. And it
That's a
could
good
be,
idea.
maybe it's people that are struggling to find work, so they're just trying to get their name out there, and they're like,
Mhm.
hey, like I just, nobody's interviewing me, no one's picking me up, so what's wrong with my resume? And it's like, okay, here we'll get the feedback, and you got one side's professional, one side's fun.
Hmm. So if we put this in your framework, then say it's like a recruiting business that you want to start. How do you start to think about it? Like, one, is this the recruiting business to pursue versus a traditional like headhunting, BD and supply type business?
Well, I think one of the things that we always look at, like, because we've obviously launched multiple entities, as even if they're JVs, joint ventures, um, as well as looking at other verticals. And the first thing I usually look at is TAM. What's the total available market? So, like, is there enough business out there that the amount of work that's going to have to go into this is worth it?
Hmm.
Because if that's not there, then it's probably not worth all the effort and cost.
Hmm. All
So
right.
that'd be probably the first thing.
Well, I think hiring is the new. This is my personal feeling. So our business is in the space too. It's a very very different approach, but I think that's the new frontier. Not necessarily because we don't know how to hire. I just think the way that we do it today is very dated compared to the type of
Agreed.
talent you have access to and the way that you can engage. I mean, you and I are recording this virtually, which is wild
Hmm.
but unheard of like 3 years ago.
Right.
And like work predominantly happens this way, at least in the digital space. I think a lot of non-strategic work is going to increasingly happen virtually. So the way hiring happens needs to change. But this could kind of fit into that revolution a little bit. Like this almost attacks the candidate side. Like how do you change the resume? How do you shine without just stacking things on your resume, which people don't even know if you did because they can't call and verify every single thing that you put
Right.
down there, right? So this kind of reinvents that. Like see you the person and the resume and how you interact on stage in front of people. I don't
Oh,
know.
that's a good point. Yeah, because they get to see how you present yourself and how comfortable you are under pressure, and getting constructive feedback or criticism, or actually just being made fun of in this scenario. Um, and you know what? It's interesting because I could see some things that the comedians say, people potentially actually putting on their resumes that would actually just like, maybe not the most extreme things that they would say, but some of the more moderate ones, and it can help them stand out, right? Like, so
Hmm.
when we do job posts, we're very clear when we make a job post. Like, I want to stand out in that job post, and we really try to speak to who we're trying to recruit, and I want to push away the people we're not. Right. And I think it's okay to have a little bit of fun in there.
Like a joke or
And
two.
yeah, like, you ever see Happy Gilmore?
Yeah.
That one line where he's like, gold jacket, green jacket, who gives a, and
Yeah.
like, we were hiring for this one role, and we wanted to make it clear, like, we just wanted high performers. I didn't care about a college degree.
Hmm.
So we were like, we did something like that, like, college degree, no college degree, who gives a, like, asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. And it was just something we wanted to show, like, we're a fun company to come work for, and we just want the best out there. We don't care if you're formally educated or not. It was more about what can you do.
That's
So
interesting.
I could see, like, resumes, if, like, to your point, like, there's so many AI written ones, they're going to be very monotonous. They're going to be very boring. They're not going to stand out. So you kind of do have to do something to stand out. I mean, there was pictures came out there for a while, right? Everyone started throwing pictures on there, and that's one thing to stand out. But I think an interesting email or an interesting resume would stand out even further.
Yeah. You have a joke at the top, and then you have a link to a YouTube video of you getting roasted on
Yeah,
the resume
exactly.
roast recruiting.
That would make me intrigued. I'd want to talk to that person.
Yeah. Well, so you blow that back out to TAM. I mean, I think that's like the dirty little secret. We've been so addicted to tech the last 10 years, we've forgotten that, like, humans are the engine of everything. Like,
Right.
even if it's a total technological product, a human had to make it. So, like, there's human power everywhere. So that still is kind of the big opportunity, as hiring evolves, which you're clearly sensing. That's like the biggest opportunity out there, because it touches literally every revenue dollar in the global economy. So the TAM is infinite, effectively.
Right.
If you can scale it.
It's a great opportunity.
So it's a big opportunity. But what's next? What do you look at next? So the biggest possible TAM, what do we do
Yeah. I think from there we generally, like, map out. Like I said, there's two things we have to do. We want to set our goals. We're going to reverse engineer what is it going to take to get those goals, and then mapping out all of those components. So, do we have what it takes to execute on this, or are we going to have to go and get outside people who know this space better than we do to help us execute? Because that completely changes the game in terms of resources, funding, dollars, whatever else. So we first try to figure out, because we talked about execution earlier, right? So how are we going to execute on this? Do we have the team? Do we need a bigger team? Do we need outside people? And then once we kind of figure out that initial resource of team, then we go and we start setting our goals and reverse engineering. And that would include a timeline to launch, right?
You set the team before the goals?
Well, I just kind of do like a cursory overview a lot of times of, like, just
that's cool,
because I might need somebody to help contribute to setting those goals, right? Because if I just don't know enough about that industry or whatever else, maybe I set goals that just have no relevance to do with it. And it's like, we could set them, and then I had to come back and completely change it. Once I hired this individual, he's gonna be like, well, this doesn't make any sense. And I just wasted 2 months. Right. So, like, for instance, when we had a coaching business here, right? And I mean, our CEO kind of just launched the coaching business, like, during COVID. He did this PPP loan webinar, and it just kind of spiraled into, all of a sudden, he's a coach for law firm owners. And we didn't have any formal process, formal trainings. He had done a few courses online that he gave to them, and he had a weekly coaching call. But we really knew there was an opportunity here. Law firm owners needed this. We could provide it. And so before we put together our whole plan of how we're going to scale this coaching business out, he came to me and said, I want you to find, like, the foremost coaching expert in the world who's scaled a coaching business from like 5 million to like 100 million and done all these things. And I was like, his name's Bill. And I was like, Bill, there's like 5 people maybe in the world that fit that mold. And he's like, good, go find them. And we did. And within, I think, like 2 or 3 months, we had an offer to somebody who had grown one of the largest coaching businesses in the whole world, who was CEO there, and we recruited him in. And then once he was on board, then he was able to educate us on how you actually execute scaling a coaching business and all the things we didn't know we needed.
So the goal was to find him. Like,
Correct.
you didn't actually have goals for the business. It was to find him. And then the second goal was to goal set with him.
Then we were going to goal set with him. Yeah. Now, you might not have to find an actual person. You might be able to do it through a consultant or whatever else. But, we've definitely, there's times where we've definitely just set the goals and execute it. That definitely happens. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
But I just think if you have the luxury to be able to find resources to help you first, you should do it. And that's why we're big on coaching, or having coaches ourselves, as well as offering coaching to others.
Yeah. So it's like vision, expertise, goals. And if you have the expertise, then you just set the goals, basically.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
All right. That's cool though. The expertise comes before the goals. It's another validator in the humans being the most valuable piece, because humans have
Agreed.
experience and power, and that's what you need to make stuff. All right.
And I think sometimes, like, you can't know everything, right? And you can't be the expert in everything. And I think we've become really good, when I say we, like our company, at being okay with not being the person who knows best or knows everything. And so we try to leverage people to do that. I mean, like you said, I do believe that people is our biggest asset. And so even if it's a manager level role or whatever else, it doesn't matter. We try to find the best, somebody who knows way more than we do about that area, who can educate us. So if we were launching a whole new business, I would definitely want somebody with that expertise.
Yeah, but that's hugely valuable nugget, because I think a lot of folks, there's so many books on goal setting. I'm sure you've read dozens yourself.
Sure.
I've never read one that says, here's how to figure out if you don't know enough to set the goal and how to find an expert. It's like,
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
But of course you need to, have a minimum level of expertise before you set the goal. Otherwise you're praying. And there's nothing wrong with praying. I think there's some magical forces there too that can help you.
For sure.
But this is just so practical. Like, do I know enough to set this goal? If I don't, find somebody. If I do, set the goal. Like, it's so practical. Because then you have a target and you have the expertise to pursue the target. And then what you said earlier, you're breaking that down into a plan and supporting the plan with facts, right? That's step 3.
And look, like you said, I don't want to diminish. There's been some amazing companies that have been founded and very successful by just having an idea, goal, and just go, right? Yeah. I think this is just the difference between the experience, right? A lot of times those are probably founders who are much younger, dropped out of college, like a Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, and just go, right? They didn't seek the experts. They just kept going to the next thing. And I think that's a great way to do it when you're young and you don't have anything to lose. But I think as you gain that experience and you learn from, sometimes it doesn't always work, then you start to develop a better game plan.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's so cool talking to folks like you who've done it in like so many different capacities, from like the beginning of your career until now you're still doing it. We get to hear a little bit of that. And I think, we talked about this earlier, like Shark Tank, really entertaining show, but you never get the meat like this. Or like, here's a crazy idea, but here's a very practical framework to actually pursue it. And just imagine that show. If one of the sharks was like, did anyone validate your points? Like, who did you talk to? Oh, you should talk to somebody. Here's 5 names you can go talk to. Like, it
would be cool to have a follow-up show.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's another good idea to pursue. Follow up to Shark Tank. What are you doing now? Did you take the advice?
And a lot of them don't even make it through the due diligence that they have to go through afterwards. But the ones that do, it'd be very interesting to see the story and how they change their goals, or their strategy, or their go-to-market, or whatever it may be. I mean, I know they make a lot of changes, manufacturing, how they go through that process, and pricing changes.
Well, I think that's part of the challenge with the VC space. I think it's different now, because pre-COVID, at least, it was just like funny money everywhere.
Sure.
So businesses would entirely optimize themselves to fundraise. And like the business model was to raise money. It wasn't to actually build a sustainable business.
You didn't need profit.
Yeah. And it's cannibalistic, like, because you raise to raise. And eventually you've inflated this thing so much that like, it's impossible for you to dig yourself out of the direction you're going in. And there isn't somebody who's going to write a check that big.
Right.
But that's why this stuff has always been so interesting. I started there, so I was exposed to a lot of that nonsense stuff, which is fun for sure, but like not practical. And I started meeting people through the show largely just because I wanted to talk to them and be like, there's so many people who build awesome stuff. And like, they all have a similar outlook, and none of them are afraid of crazy ideas. Like, I read this and you're like, oh, that's a good idea.
I actually kind of like it.
Yeah. So that's super cool. So grateful to have this on paper. Our nugget for the show is absolutely that. Like, identify your vision, seek experience, and then set goals. Brandon Bowers, that's the quote.
I'll have to use it for my LinkedIn post tomorrow. I like that.
Yeah, we'll make it a clip. How do people, so do you do any coaching yourself or advisory, or totally tied up with building your business in this one?
Not right now. It is definitely something I would like to do. I think I want to start working on a book.
Yeah.
We follow different models like EOS. We kind of made our own and whatnot over the years, and they're scaling up. And what's that one? There's another one out there that I'm blanking on. But there's so many different types of systems type books, right? But I think I don't know if it's even going to be feasible. I would love to one day be able to write a book that could help a company scale through all the different levels. Because a lot of times when you talk to different coaches or executives, they'll say, oh, use EOS when you're very small. And then when you get to the next level, then you use scaling up. And then when you get to the next level, you use this other one. And it'd be great if there was just one system that allows you to iterate and change as you go. But it's so hard because like EOS, it's great in many ways. It's great for small business because it's very systematized and organized. It's very basic steps you can take to execute. But when it comes to strategy, it lacks a little bit. When it comes to fast action and pivoting, it lacks. And so you'll break it. And so I would love to find one that allows you to kind of adapt as you go.
Create one, the Bowers system.
That's the goal, but it's not easy.
Well, I mean, you kind of already are. I think we pulled the nugget of it out on this show. Maybe this can be part of the spark that starts it. But super, super grateful to have you here and to get some of that down on record about something that I think is ridiculous. Like we combine comedy and HR. Those are like polar opposites, but actually could be kind of cool.
I think we're going to have to touch base after and see how we make this happen. I'm digging this idea.
So that's your verdict. Do you think this is a good idea? This is not a bad idea.
I think if it, well, again, what's interesting is how everyone approaches it from a different lens, right? The fact that I didn't think of it in terms of like it being a business thing. I thought of it as like an entertainment type company.
Yeah.
And I think from that lens, I think it could be very successful. I would totally watch that.
All right. We get an upvote. How do people, so you're not coaching now, you're going to write the book.
Yep.
Would
Hopefully
you recommend
people something?
It'll happen. You put it out there. It's going to have to happen now. Would you prefer people just reach out to SMB Team or get in touch with you?
You can find me on my LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
I've built up a pretty big following, and I'm now trying to like start a newsletter on there as kind of my first step for getting people to follow me and sharing some of the things that I've learned along the way, right? Of growing people and teams and companies. So it's going to be a lot of people oriented wisdom, but a little bit of everything in terms of scaling the business.
Super valuable stuff. And you have such a practical delivery.
I appreciate
that. Ton of value. So shoot us a link to that. We'll get that out with the
I will for sure
when this publishes, and we'll link people over to you too. I'm sure folks will ask you to advise or coach, so that's going to have to happen as well. So you've got like 3 businesses: your coaching business.
Hey, there you go. I like to stay busy.
And catering too. I mean, you've done that before. I have to do it again.
Right.
All right. Thank you so much. This was amazing.
Thanks for having me. That was fun. It was very different, and I like your concept here. This is very fun to be a part of.
Oh, super appreciate it.